Good. So welcome. Thank you for coming.
Not at all, not at all.
Sorry it took us a while to get there. Okay, so we'll have no guests because no one will know we're here. I mean, we did have one guest, but I just don't know what was wrong with the audio. I'll have to work it out.
Yeah, no, we tested it all at this end, and the microphone was working, speakers were working, so...
It's a software issue because I've tested it this end as well and it's working. I tested it on Skype and it's working fine. So, and obviously we're talking now, so whatever's going on, it's something to do with the connection with the other software. And it worked fine when we tested it, so I don't know. All right, we'll have to just explore and see what's going on. So let's crack on. Let's get started.
Okay.
Hello there and welcome to the Long Partnerships Business Leader webinars. My name is Paul Harvey and this is a beautiful sunny day. So I'm delighted today to have Bruce MacGregor with us and Alan Long, and I'm just going to do a brief introduction. I pulled it off the LinkedIn this morning, so I've got the details here. So Bruce does a lot of things. We've got the Northern Roots events, which I'm sure there's been an interesting conversation there. MacGregor's Bars, Blazing Fiddles, and he's also a radio presenter. So I'm feeling a little bit intimidated on that one. What I was fascinated by Bruce's mission statement around MacGregor's Bars. I'm going to read it to you because I think it's worth talking about. My mission is to take MacGregor's Bars to the front of the world's craft drinks revolution, celebrating all that's good in modern day Scotland, no compromise. I think it's a fantastic mission statement. So welcome Bruce, welcome Alan. Please say hello, and Bruce, tell us more about yourself.
Well, I just like to get involved in projects that excite me. I think that's been my own mission statement throughout life, actually. I cannot bear working on a project that isn't working for me and isn't making me get out of bed excited about go to work. I think that's got to be key. I've had a lovely little job at the BBC years ago where I could have been very comfortable, probably on a very nice pension by now, and just about probably not far off retiral age, actually. Early redundancy and all sorts. But I was bored and there were other things to go and do. And I think leaving the BBC was probably the best thing I ever did. And to be thankful to the BBC, actually, they gave me a year sabbatical to go and try it out and see what I wanted to do. And that was very good of them. You don't get many employers who will allow that kind of thing, with the option of going back as well. So it was great. So I think that's the key to everything that I'm involved with. Some may say that I'm involved with too many projects, but to be honest, I think as many projects as I can do and I can get a good team around me, I don't see there being any problem.
And the BBC did let you back?
They did let me back. Actually, the reason I'm presenting now, I'm absolutely certain if I was still working within the BBC, there is no way they would have given me a job as a presenter if I'd stayed within it. You're almost always more attractive outside of the system to get the job. It's quite a strange thing.
But then I suppose you had gone out and got all these other experiences.
Yeah, and I'd made all the contacts in the music world, and I suppose because I'd gone out and started Blazing Fiddles in 1998, but it was quite a while after that I actually left the BBC, and I think having gone out there and the band done very well, touring around the world, meeting other musicians, it gave us credibility. You know, I think that's what they wanted, a presenter who had credibility within the music industry.
But I think that sort of background, though, because I always think this with any sort of any musician, any performer, they become quite resilient and quite unflappable.
Completely.
Because they've been through all those horrendous moments when the instrument doesn't work or the technology doesn't work.
Recording.
There's nothing new on the horizon for them.
Yeah.
So they just get on with it.
Yeah, it's very funny. Actually, I would say, just taking politics into this very slightly, but during the Scottish referendum, I would say nearly every self-employed musician I knew was for a yes vote. And that was because I think they had taken risks, and they know that once you take a risk, the chances are it will be okay in the long run. So it was very interesting that that was definitely the case then. So I don't know if that's, but then again, that didn't work. So,
I think we're all used to being on the losing side in referendums at the moment. Let's see what happens to the next one.
So obviously you've got 4 projects, and what is interesting is you picked up on the point of teamwork, which is very topical for us this morning, because we just sent out a blog post today which is very much about teamwork, picking up on the success of the sportsmen this weekend that all have big teams behind them. So do you operate a very big team?
Not particularly. I mean, I've got a very small core team of people who I completely trust and work with, and then we've got lots of others who come in and help us do specific jobs. But the core team is probably only 4 or 5 people. But it's just like, I mean, I would include Alan in our team as well, because that is a side of business that I don't really understand particularly well. It doesn't particularly excite me. But Alan's the first accountant I've actually met that actually talks in terms of business and the wider opportunities of business, rather than just telling you what the figures are and not even what they mean. Sometimes I've had accountants just tell me what figures are, and I'm going, oh, that's interesting. So yeah, I would include all those people in it. And teamwork is something that I've played rugby for years and years, and going right through from school to university to clubs here, I've quite often been the captain of the teams. And as I grew up, I realised that no matter if shouting or trying to lead from the front by yourself works 100%. It'll get you up to a certain point, but unless you can get every one of your 15 or 22 people in that team pulling in the same direction, you're not going to succeed the way you really want to. Mm-hmm. So it's actually making sure that the last person in the team sheet, or the person who's right at the bottom of the scale of pay perhaps, feels as important as the person at the top and has as much say. For instance, last night we did a Scottish Showtime to a group of Disney do a tour, and they took them in to watch our show last night, 40 Americans in. After the show, we had a debrief. Now, it wasn't an organised one. It was where one of the fiddlers, the cook, the barmaid, all chipped in as to what they saw and what could be improved. And we came out with 4 or 5 great ideas, which we'll put into the next one. And I like the fact that people who work with me, I don't think anybody actually thinks they work for me. I think everybody thinks they work alongside me. In fact, quite a few of them probably think they run the place and I just kind of turn up, which I'm quite happy for people to do that kind of thing, as long as they get the job done.
Normal for most businesses.
Yeah.
The boss turns up every now and again.
Well, it means they've got ownership, which is great.
Yeah, and I really like that idea that people felt strongly enough to stay back, because a couple of them had actually stayed back about an hour after the event because there had been 1 or 2 little hiccups, and they wanted to solve those hiccups that night. I didn't have to hold them back in or say what went wrong there. They were interested, and that for me was really satisfying, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the interesting points you're making there, because I'm a great believer that what you do in business has a lot to do with what you've done outside.
Mm-hmm.
It's all the experiences you've had outside, all the things you've learned. What you've learned from playing rugby, what you've learned from being part of Blazing Fiddles, you bring to the events at Bob Bain and the Showtime and all these things. Because if you just rely on what you learn in business, that's only half the story.
Yeah, I'd very much say so. It's funny, I'm trying to take business practices into Blazing Fiddles, which dealing with 6 other musicians who have not really been interested in business in the slightest, and we're trying to work out a strategy for the next 18 months, and that most of them just want to do gigs, and as many gigs as possible, and we're kind of talking about saturation points of going around the same places, what fees we need to be going out for it, how it projects the bands, how it projects the band as an image to promoters and everyone else. So it's really interesting having those discussions with musicians who have never really thought that way. So I like going back and forth and using all these outside influences within to try and get to where we're wanting to go. And I feel that's something with the bar, actually, I've said is a very important part. I think our bar staff, when we get that open, one of the key things I want them to realise is that they're actually performing every night. Behind a bar, you're on stage, everyone is watching you, and you're sending out the messages about the place. So that's one of the key things. And the great thing is with our bar, we did it by crowdfunding. So we've got 142 investors, I think it is. Now, any one of those 142 could be in the bar any night. So all the staff will know that it's not just me they've got look out for that they're working to. It's all these other people who will just be walking in. So it's not keeping people on their toes. It's just knowing that they're responsible, not just to me, but to all these other people when they come in the door.
That's an interesting topic, actually, because we've talked about crowdfunding before in some of the blog posts that we've done. And so can you tell us a little about your story or your journey with crowdfunding?
Sure. Well, I kind of investigated the idea of the property we've got in Inverness is a place my father's had since the 1970s. It's been sitting empty for the last nearly 2 years now. I'd always actually thought a bar in that area would be good, even though that area of town and Academy Street has been run down for quite some time. The building we have there is on the gable end of Church Street and Academy Street. It's the most prominent building right there, and it's got a big area for a beer garden. And I've been thinking about that since I was 10 years old, which seems bizarre, but I was obsessed with the Beatles when I was younger. And the downstairs in that bar was kind of like the cavern. And I thought, wouldn't it be brilliant to have our own cavern? So that was in my mind from the age of 10, because I was in there doing the pointing and the painting on the wall with my father at weekends. So that dream has been there all that time. However, trying to take a dream to a bank to fund a new bar, eatery, whatever, it just an absolute non-starter. And I discussed it with a couple of people I knew in the bank, and they just said, look, we're not interested in funding. You'll have to get a brewery to come in. And that's the last thing. I didn't want a brewery coming in and telling us how to run it. I wanted very much our own stamp on things. So there really wasn't that many options. Crowdfunding was one we looked at, and we looked at a company called Square Knot. I met the director of that company, Derek Bond, a couple of times. He had good examples of things that had worked before. Doncaster Rovers, for instance, how they'd managed to raise plenty of money for their club. And he said more and more businesses were trying to do it this way. So I ended up building up the business plan with figures with him, and how much equity we were going to release for the A-class shareholders. Then there was the B-class shareholders, which is basically your kind of followers and disciples, the people who are really going to bang the drum for it. And they were under £1,000 for investment. And then once we got all that drawn up, that was really where the hard work started. It was unbelievably hard work getting to where we did. We eventually raised £170,000, but that took 6 months, and I must have met well over 150 people in one-to-one meetings as well, just going to chat to them. And, even after long meetings, you might only get £100 out of it, but it didn't matter. They were committed to your cause. So that was important, and it was important to keep the momentum going. With the company Square Knot, they set up 3 or 4 meetings throughout Scotland, where I would do a 10-minute presentation and then a question and answer session. A wee bit like the Dragon's Den, but a lot friendlier. And we did one in Inverness at the Cally Thistle Stadium, one in Edinburgh, one in Glasgow, and one in Aberdeen. And from that, I got people from those cities investing in it. And it also really made me focus in on what the business idea was and how strong or weak elements of it were. I think everybody understood what I was trying to do. The message got across there. But some of the people who were quite keen to invest felt I needed a bit of expertise in X, Y, and Z. They put me in touch with the right people, and actually some of those people have come in and invested. So it was very much, I went in with a plan, but I was also adaptable. And I think that was quite important. So that took us up. And, I would say I've been contacted by a few people about doing crowdfunding, and what I've said is, you can't just offer the rewards. Like people are saying, well, I'll give you a bottle of gin if you sign up to us, or I'll give you this. It's got to be a little bit focused. It's got to have a return. You've got to put yourself in the person's check book and say, why would I sign this check to give it to you? What am I getting out of it?
What's in it for me?
Yeah, and that's the only way. No matter how good your idea you think it is, the other person thinks it might be a good idea, but they want to know what they're going to get out of it.
Yeah. But it's good to hear of a success story in crowdfunding. That's the most important thing, and the reality that it does take hard work and effort to do. But then, so does getting money in any kind of event. You'd be jumping just as many hoops if you went to professional organisations to find the money.
Completely. I mean, the good thing was I was meeting people who were enthusiastic and kind of on my side.
Yeah.
I was going to the bank, you actually feel like, you know, you're begging. They're not really that keen for you to do it anyway. And I did feel that every person I spoke to got excited about the project, genuinely excited, which kept me going on it as well. It has been, I mean, it's been tough even because we hit the target and we're ready, but then some people are expecting immediate returns. And despite the fact, you know, we've got to get planning permission, we've got to get a building warrant, we've got to get a license, and people say, why is it not open yet? Well, it doesn't just happen overnight. So it's a constant thing. And, you know, I have to answer 142 emails. You know, if there's something goes wrong, they'll be straight back into me. You know, I've had some of my best friends have invested in this. So
it sounds like you need a newsletter. A regular newsletter to keep people on the side. That's what you need. But hey, I'm a marketing guy. I'd say that sort of thing.
I have been using the delights of MailChimp actually, and sending out a fairly regular one. But I got to that stage actually with a newsletter when I thought, I have nothing much to say here, and I don't really want to keep boring people by just repeating the same stuff.
There's always something to say. But hey, look, this is not about me. It's about you. So what's the biggest challenge? What has the biggest challenge been in all the years of business?
When I started Bob Bainoff as an adventure company, we got a grant from the Agricultural Business Diversification Scheme, which allowed us to build some new buildings there and, you know, set up for a kids' adventure centre. That was incredibly hard work, just converting all the old buildings. Having to work with your family as well is always tough. You know, my father's very opinionated and got his ideas about things. So, you know, we had to go through lots of debate and discussion about how things were working. And then it got to the stage I realised my heart wasn't really into that. And financially, it was pulling me completely down. And it came to that stage where I had to say, this has failed. This has absolutely failed. We have to change it one way or another. And a couple of things happened. We got rid of all the kids stuff and we kept some of the adult activities like the quad biking and clay pigeon shooting, and that helped, and started off a couple of little festivals which helped keep people coming into the place because the building was still there. It was still an asset. We still weren't really sure what to do with it. And I would say that was pretty much the low point. You know, we had to fold Buckbane Adventure and Heritage, and you know, it's never a nice feeling having to admit that you have failed in something, but didn't really dwell on it. There was no time to dwell on it because a woman walked in through the door who said that the barn and everything around that building was exactly what she was looking for her wedding. I went, really? Because it hadn't really occurred. And about 2-3 months later, this was 2012, September 2012, we had our first wedding, which again was an unbelievable amount of work went into just getting that place ready for it. But the wedding was fantastic. There was 250 people at it in the evening. The photographs that went up on Facebook just went completely viral. And we've had 35 weddings this year.
Hey,
so it just shows you that, you know, you can hit a real low at one point, but you know, something else will open it. You've just got to keep your eyes open and be ready to jump onto the next thing that will work.
I think the thing you always have to keep in mind is that where you are now is because of everything you've done before. So although the kids' adventure business didn't prosper, the reason this one does well is because of all the lessons you learned along the way.
Yeah.
But I think the other thing which strikes me, because if you look at the Bogbane website, if you look at the wedding photos that are posted there, and seeing girls in their bridal finery and Wellington boots. So it's differentiated from the market.
Yes.
Yeah, I think actually that's one of the key things that I have learned over all that time with the weddings and with the festivals as well. We did a couple of festivals, the Whiskey and Gin Festival at the farm, and then Brew at the Bog, which was a tie-up between Brewdog beer and ourselves. And we never ever aimed that to be a a majorly commercial like festival. It was to champion emerging Scottish beer company, which was Brewdog at that time, and then it was to champion bands that people had never heard of. And that was the whole idea. It was taking the underdog and never mind about the big festivals. And that worked. I mean, when I say it worked, it got people coming in, and people actually came to that festival, ended up getting married there because they loved the place, and it opened it up for us. The fluctuations of how a festival can work and fail are as much as, 200-300 people can make all the difference between it succeeding and failing. And that can be just done by the weather when you're on a smaller festival like that. But having spoken to other people who run festivals, Belladrum and around here, I know, you've just got to keep working at these things, keep building them. And, just if you do have a good year, make sure you save it for the next year, because it could all go completely. So,
weather dependent. You're so weather dependent.
Yeah. So that's been really interesting. And you're right, Alan, the work that we did to set the place up for the Kids Adventure Centre, all those barns that we converted, all the toilets we put in, the kitchens we put in, they were all usable and they were there. And, I also learned a lot about VAT, which, yeah, that was interesting.
But it's also going through that experience of a business going down. I think it alters your attitude towards a business that you're trying to take up. I think if anybody hasn't been on that edge, they haven't learned everything they could have learned about business.
Yeah. Funnily
enough, I'm speaking to another couple of guys whose company has just gone under about creating a product at Bogbain, and I actually was really attracted to them because I knew they'd actually just failed, and I knew why they'd just failed, and they knew why they'd just failed, and they weren't that far away from a really big success. They just missed something out. It was a little bit to do, it was cash flow at one stage, and it was about not getting the right investment in right at the very beginning, not having enough cash there to get them going. So I actually was attracted to the fact they'd failed. I thought, these guys know what it's like. They won't let that happen again. But the knowledge that they've picked up doing, producing the products they have done is absolutely vital in the market we're looking at.
That's the difference in the US and the UK market, because in the US, if you failed at a business, you're seen as someone as a goer, and you'll probably get more funding. Whereas in this country, if you failed at a business, you won't get any funding. So it's really kind of...
I mean, in the US, you could become the president.
Well, indeed.
I think you can see that in this country, because if somebody's been involved in a company that's been liquidated, you try and get a bank account for a new business.
You can't.
I'll tell you one bank will do it.
Okay.
I've found one so far.
Okay, all right, that's
I'll
good.
keep that to myself. I'm going to make a lot of enemies if I tell you that now.
I'm sure you would. So, okay, I think we've also touched on this. So what's the biggest success for you?
I think that point of rock bottom to 35 weddings in 3 or 4 years has been a fairly major success. I'm also really happy now with the Scottish Showtime thing that we've put together, because the whole plan with that was I watched all the tourists wandering around Inverness in an evening, and I watched them wander around lost and nothing to do. And I thought, we can create something. There's so many great musicians I knew, there's so many good food and drink products, but I wanted a product that actually excited people. They didn't just sit there listening to people sing or play, but they actually got hands-on, physically involved. And that was the show we developed. It's called Scottish Showtime. I don't like the name, to be quite honest, and I'm still looking for a better one. But the fact that we've got Disney signed up, and the feedback we've had from Disney has been just tremendous. The best thing they've done in Scotland. And they're used to staying in 5-6-star experiences in the UK, and they're coming up to our farm, which still looks like a farm and is still rough and ready in many of the places, but it's the best experience they've had whilst in Scotland. And that, to me, is really encouraging. My plan with that is actually to, once we get this one absolutely nailed as to how the programme works, is to create a little format that I can punt off to other musicians I know in Edinburgh and Glasgow and say, this is how you run it, we'll sell your tickets for you. There's Scottish Showtime Edinburgh, here's Glasgow, and be able to do that. So I'm excited about that one, because that's been a bit of a slog, and trying to deal with tour companies and get this, they're about 1.5 years, 2 years lead time. So that's a real slow burner, and you could lose heart with that. But yeah, I'm pretty pleased with that, and I'm pretty pleased with the fact Blazing Fiddles is still going after 17 years, despite all the lineup changes and everything else. I think we've stuck with it, or I've stuck with it, and you know, we had a concert there in Stonehaven Folk Festival on Sunday night with a standing ovation, and the tour we did in England, again, there's standing ovations every night, and it's lovely to see that come back, because it had dipped and it's come back, and it just needed a bit of revitalising.
Yes.
So they're the key elements.
So how do you do your strategic planning, or sort of how do you plan what you're going to do? Because if you've got these 3 or 4 projects, and I'm just curious, because how do you keep all those balls in the air?
Yes, I'd love to know the answer to that.
It's a joke.
Yes, it is getting a brilliant team. Joe, my partner, actually has come in start work at Bogbain in February, and is the most organised person I know, but also highly creative. So she gets the idea about what we're trying to do, and she's always throwing ideas into the pot and moving it forward. But again, you know, we're talking about a 5-year plan of how we operate the weddings.
Yeah.
I know the thing is, you should always have an exit strategy. We do have one, but whether or not we actually want to go for it is another option. You know, we do have a plan of what we want to do. It's the same with the bar. I've got very much a kind of 5-year plan of how I want that to move. I'd say my biggest weakness is actually making sure that I keep a note on how successful I've been keeping tabs on things, because I do know that if I look over the year, I think, well, I've actually achieved 95% of what I set out to do. But sometimes there can be real dips of when I'm not actually very productive. For instance, when I'm away on tour, I find it incredibly difficult to keep on top of stuff. But then I'll come back, and for instance, the 2 weeks just now, Joe's on holiday in France. She's got a house over there, and I'm at home, and I'm basically working every hour that we have, you know, that I'm awake, and you get a huge amount done then. So it's being able to, I suppose, swings and roundabouts, but I would like to be a little bit more structured as to a bit more of an even keel.
We'll have to have that discussion about your big, hairy, audacious goal.
Yes. Yeah.
The 10-year plan.
Yeah. Well, I certainly, for the bar, I've got a very, very set idea of what we want to do with that. Scottish Showtime, same thing. It's just trying not to let life get in the way of it all, isn't it?
So do you draw on any do you have any books that you kind of think are, you know, the best business books that you read or you refer to? Do you draw on the outside? You know, what do you use as your influence or your kind of like, you know, your mentor?
My 2 favourite books, and one that I go back to just about every couple of months I go back to, is the E-Myth. I just love it, and the simplicity of it. It reminds you, you know, I'm terrible for getting drawn into working in the business rather than on it, and that kind of thing. The other one was Will It Make the Boat Go Faster, which I found absolutely fascinating as well, because it had the real interest. It was about a rower who actually hadn't been that good but ended up winning Olympic gold, and he'd moved into business, and he'd worked with a business psychologist, and they were kind of looking at what he did and to get to his goal and how it can be applied to business, and that really excited me, because I could see both parts of it. It's also extremely well written. I'd say that about both those books. I mean, I've picked up The 7 Habits of Extremely Effective People and put it down so many times, because I actually didn't think it was very interesting a lot of the time. It was written clinically, whereas I like books that are kind of written like a narrative and there's stories there. I think if you can attack people with stories, you win every time.
The E-Myth is it's just a fascinating story. There's so many lessons in it. My copy is so dog-eared, because I've had it now for about 10 or 15 years. And every few months I'll take it out and take it on the plane with me and read a bit more. Yeah. But every time you go back to it, you think, oh yeah, that's something I've forgotten about.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. I think it was written in the 70s or something, late 70s.
Probably. I can go about.
Yeah, it's absolutely great. The other one I really like is Marketing Judo, which is the story of the 2 guys who started off, took Harry Ramsden's and did such a great job. And just basically how, if you are a small company with no marketing budget, how you kind of piggyback onto other companies that might work with you. I've always found that fascinating. Again, there was a sporting thing there. I was looking at judo. So I do find that if they've got another interest, attached to it, it makes a lot more sense. But yeah, I'd certainly find them, those three, really, really, really good.
So here's the awkward question, which is always awkward. It's like, so is there anything that I haven't asked you that you think I should have done?
No, I don't think so. I think we've covered more or less. I would say, I'm very aware of all my faults within business, and I'm always keen to try and find people who are better than me in nearly every sphere. I'd say the only good thing I am really good at is actually persistence and keeping going with things, even when things are tough. I know that can be a problem sometimes if you're going the wrong direction, because I was possibly doing that with the adventure side. I should have stopped maybe earlier. However, I know I'm not very good in IT. I know I'm not very good with figures, and I know I can lack clarity in detail. But thankfully, Joe is really good at that. Alan's really good at financial stuff, and we're working on the IT stuff. But those things I know I'm poor at, so I'm not too proud to ask for help. I think
always comes back to the team.
Yeah, definitely.
I think one of the things which one of the things I've never seen Bruce do is lose his rag. He is the most calm person I've ever come across. I'm sure he must have his moments. I must ask Joe about this. But it just seems to be, whatever happens, he just gets on with things. And I think that's actually a great lesson for all of us, because there's things happen in business the whole time. And if you let it get to you, then you're not working effectively.
No.
You can just keep calm and keep working through it. It's such an important lesson.
Yeah. Well, actually, that does come down to my dad, who's possibly not the calmest person, but we used to work on this peat bog when we were kids, and we were driving massive big tractors around the place, 12, 13 years old, in a peat bog, and sinking all the time. He was trying to drain this peat bog, and he must have spent 30 years at that bog. And no matter what the disaster was and things breaking, he'd just go, yep, you get these things in big jobs. And the Robert the Bruce story, try and try again. He always gave us that kind of insight about business, and no matter where you are, he's always got inspirational quotes written, scribbled all over the wall and things like that, which I do think is, wherever you are, you can get out of it or go to another direction. Or, nothing is worth giving up on.
That's a nice quote to use. That's a nice quote to end on. So, have you got anything else to add, Alan, at all?
No, not really. Obviously, we've known Bruce for a little while now, and we came in at the tail end of the Kids Adventure story. But we've seen him sort of picking up from there, and I think Bob Bain is going to sort of go from strength to strength.
Mm-hmm. And obviously the bar, when it opens, will be the same. But it sounds a great model, the crowdfunding model that you started on that one. It sounds like it could be replicated. Yeah.
Well, the plan is to go from Scotland. We get the model right in Inverness, and then we're aiming for London, and then maybe one other in the UK before trying to franchise the model out. But it really has to be about the best in Scotland. There is absolutely no room for compromise on that. I'm fed up of travelling around the world and walking into Irish bars and Scottish bars that have got nothing about Scotland in them. So.
No, other than a bit of tartan and some dodgy music.
Yeah, exactly. A little bit better than that by the time we told people about it.
So thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for coming in and talking to us. And sorry about the technical glitch at the beginning. So that's just one of those things. But we rolled with it, and we managed to kind of pick it up from there. So great to talk to you, gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you.